Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the ownership situations around the CFL and just how the dynamics have changed since I last discussed it a few years ago. So, a few years ago, when I first started this channel, there was a whole bunch of uncertainty around the CFL at the time with the canceled 2020 season, and I decided to do a video talking about the ownership structure of the CFL and how it's unique compared to other leagues out there. And I feel like a couple years have passed since then, so I think it's due for an update and just talk about some of these different ownership groups that have changed around the CFL in this 9-team league and how it affects the CFL's future. So we're not going to go too in depth here, but I just wanted to brush upon all 9 ownership groups in the CFL, starting out west with the BC Lions. They were bought in 2021 by millionaire Amar Doman, who's a local guy there in BC. And I think he's done a marvelous job since owning the team. Obviously, it's only been the 1 year since he's taken the hold of the team, but I felt like last year they really did a great job with encouraging ticket sales, making the game an attraction to go to. Obviously, the One Republic concert at the home opener last year had over 35,000 people in attendance. Attendance dropped after that, but at the end of the day, that's to be expected after bringing in such a big event to start the season. And overall, I think Omar is doing a really good job in BC, and he's kind of a model to follow, especially compared to the years of David Braley, which unfortunately, in his later years owning the team, just wasn't as hands-on or involved and just wasn't willing to try new things. So I think Amar has brought a lot of fresh energy to the Lions organization, and I hope it continues and we can see an uptick in attendance going forward. But I think regardless, this team's a lot more stable than it was at the time a few years ago when they were looking for a new owner. Now talking about Calgary, they're owned by Calgary Sports and Entertainment since 2012 when that group was established. They're one of 3 teams that is owned by a group that owns multiple sports teams, and we'll talk about the others here in a minute. Calgary Sports Entertainment, there's not too much information out there on how the team has been doing, but we can look at their attendance, and their attendance was not that great the past couple of years in Calgary since they've returned from the pandemic. That's been pretty common around the CFL, but at the end of the day, I think Calgary's looked a lot worse than some of the other teams in the league. Compared to what they were in previous years. I think you've seen a gradual decline with that team. So that is concerning for Calgary going forward. But in terms of the ownership group itself, there have been rumors about maybe somebody trying to buy the team in the future. Nothing really super recently, but back in like 2021, I think there was a rumor that, obviously this ship has sailed because of the XFL, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was interested. That was a rumor floated out there. There hasn't really been any rumors since that Calgary Sports Entertainment is looking to buy or sell the stamps. So very interested to see what happens in the future if this group owns the team long term and if they can get the financial side of the team turned around long term or get it back to the level it was about a decade ago. I think Calgary used to be one of the strongest teams financially in the CFL. And like I said, we don't have the books, but I think judging just from the attendance and that the CFL is a gate-driven league, Calgary just hasn't doesn't look like it's up there in terms of the flagship franchise of the CFL anymore. And then the other 3 West teams, these are the community-owned teams: Edmonton, Saskatchewan, and Winnipeg. These are traditionally the strongest 3 franchises financially in the CFL, just the most stable franchises. And what complicates it is, I talked about this a few years ago in the video I made. They don't have a private owner that can throw a bunch of money at a project. And that could be a big thing when talking about a potential expansion to the CFL, any new initiatives they want to try. These teams don't have the money to throw in that other teams do necessarily because they don't have that private backing. So say they want to expand to Halifax and they need money to build that pop-up stadium out there, they don't have necessarily the amount of cash to throw in to that project. The CFL is going to be investing part of that cost there. So, I mean, that's a concern from that perspective, but these have traditionally been the most stable and successful franchise in the CFL. Edmonton has seen a drastic decline in attendance the last few years. Ever since the name change, I'm not going to blame it on that. I think people should get over that, but at the end of the day, I think that has played a little bit of a role in the decline in attendance. The fact that the team has done so poorly the past couple seasons, especially at home where they have yet to win a game since they have returned from the canceled season. So, I mean, Edmonton, I think if they start winning, you could see an upward trend there again, but have really bottomed out the last couple years in terms of their attendance. And, I can't see that helping the books that much. And then Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, I think Saskatchewan did see a little bit of a decline in attendance, like most teams since COVID. But at the end of the day, I think that Saskatchewan's still probably the number one franchise in the CFL for sales and tickets and everything like that. So I think that they're probably in pretty good shape. Winnipeg is probably in one of the better shapes it's been in the last 20 years because the recent success that they've had, obviously going to 3 straight Grey Cups, that really helps from a business perspective. So these community-owned teams, except for Edmonton, I don't think I have too many concerns with them going forward. I think they're in a pretty good place, and they've really been leaders in terms of the CFL. Now let's turn out east, starting with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who are owned by Bob Young and Stelco, a deal that was made in 2022. Bob Young has actually owned the Tiger Cats since 2003, but this latest ownership structure that was announced last year has only been in place for a little over a year, with Stelco buying in at a 40% stake in the team, and that is actually the Forge and the Tiger Cats organization, Hamilton Sports Group is what it's called. So this is a new ownership structure in Hamilton. I think it's a really good sign that the Tiger Cats have been doing well financially since the pandemic, because I think they bought in at about a $50 million valuation, that 40% stake. So a lot of money going into the Tiger Cats organization. So I think that's a good sign. Tiger Cats have been consistently a very good attendance for the stadium that they have. Like, it's the perfect size, does not look too empty. Maybe some days it does have some empty seats, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have those big swaths of empty seats like you do in other teams around the league. So I think the Tiger Cats have done a really good job. They are a really good model for the CFL to follow, and I think there's not really that much concern about the Tiger Cats going forward. I think Bob Young is arguably the most powerful guy in the entire CFL, given that his vast wealth, but also the ability to say, I am a guy that runs a very successful team in terms of the business side of things. So at the end of the day, I think the Tiger Cats are in good hands with Bob Young and have been since 2003. And then Montreal, the most recent ownership group that comes into the CFL, and inspiration for me making this video, they were sold to Quebecor owner Pierre Carl Pelado in 2023, just a couple of months ago. And I think that this is a very interesting addition to the league's ownership group because of the person that Pierre Carl Pelado is. He is the owner of Quebecor, a major media company in Quebec, and it just so happens to be a major competitor of Bell Media, which owns TSN, the league's exclusive broadcast partner, the CFL's exclusive broadcast partner, that is. And I think that could be very interesting when it comes to the TV deal that is set to expire in 2025. Does Pelado want the broadcast rights for the Alouettes games in 2025 on his own network? And I'm really interested to see what happens with that. He's a guy that brings a ton of capital to the Alouettes organization, brings local ownership, a guy that's from Quebec. So I think that's going to be a big boon for the Alouettes. Hopefully, there's some major developments that happen. I think the real key thing with him is, can he get a stadium built? Can they get a new modern facility and not play at the University of McGill? I think it does have some benefits playing there, being downtown. I think it just the beautiful surrounding of the stadium. But I think in terms of the stadium itself, they could do with a new venue. And I think with the resources that Pierre Carl Pelado has, he could potentially in the future, create an avenue to do that. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that and the TV deal, and just the general improvements that he's going to make in Montreal with the 2 billion net worth that he does have. And then looking at the Ottawa ownership group, it's Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, who owns the Ottawa 67s and I believe the Ottawa Blackjacks, if I'm not mistaken. So another group that owns multiple sports teams here. Another group that you can't really find too much information on, but I think this is actually pretty similar to Hamilton. Pretty similar size stadiums, pretty similar attendance. Ottawa has been pretty successful, in my opinion, since coming back to the league. Especially the last few years have really proved that, because this team has not been good on the field, but these fans keep on coming back to support this team. And personally, I think they're in pretty good hands with ownership there in Ottawa. Since 2014, it's the same group that's owned the team. The original owner that actually started the group is no longer with the team. I think that's Mr. Hunt. I forget his first name, but he's the guy that brought the Ottawa Redblacks back to Ottawa. Big time Canadian Football League fan, but he's no longer with the group. But the same ownership structure, aside from him, is still there since 2014, since the team came back. And I think they've kind of been a model and gives you confidence that if they were to go and expand the league, this is a good model to look at to potentially bring an ownership group into the league. And then the final group we're going to talk about is perhaps the most controversial one, and that is the Toronto Argonauts, who are owned by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment since 2017, more commonly referred to as MLSE. There's been some controversy about their lack of investment in the Argos. The Argos are always a hot topic around the CFL with their lack of attendance, and compared to a lot of teams, especially considering they're in Canada's biggest market. But at the end of the day, they also face challenges that other markets simply don't. They have so much competition from other sports teams. But at the end of the day, I think that means that they have to try even harder to gain the attention of the fan, and they just haven't done that over their time owning the team, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of Argos fans out there. So, Argos fans, you'll have to let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. If you guys believe that the team has not been in good hands so far with MLSC since they've owned the team. But at the end of the day, they do bring a lot of financial capital to the table for this league, and a good deal of stability, because they're not going to go under because of their ownership of the Leafs and the Raptors and all that. They have a ton of money behind them to absorb the losses that the Argos are inevitably suffering each year by the lack of attendance and money that they're bringing to the table. So very interested to see what happens with the Argos ownership in the future if MLSC looks to sell the team. The Argos have had a very interesting ownership history, and that's a video I want to do going forward, is looking at the ownership history of every CFL team. But the Argos have had a really interesting ownership situation over the years. They've been owned by multiple different people throughout the decades, and I'm really interested to see what happens in the future with MLSC owning the team. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at the CFL as a whole, the major changes over the last couple of years, obviously you have Doman in BC. He's doing a great job. Edmonton has really kind of, went down. It's really declined over the last couple of years, especially in terms of the attendance. Everybody can see that on TV. But I think I'm hopeful still, if they can get a winning team back on the field, that the fans will come back there. With the Tiger Cats, with the new addition of Stelco as part of that ownership group there, I think that's a good sign about the health of that organization. Carl Pelado is the newest addition to the league. I think that is a big bonus for the CFL, that he is from Quebec and has that multi-billion-dollar net worth, and a guy that is going to invest in the team. And I think I'm really excited to see what he brings to the table in the future with this league. And at the end of the day, I think when you're looking at this league, I think that bringing in the fresh ownership groups to the league, I think, can really bring some new ideas to the table, and I think that will help the league in the future as they look to make some grand plans in terms of expansion and TV deals and whatnot. So I'm really excited to see how these new ownership groups affect the league in the future. Well, with that said, that is going to be the end of today's long and rambling video. I apologize that went on for so long, but I think this is a really interesting topic. I think that the ownership groups in the CFL, it's very interesting and unique compared to the other sports leagues out there. And it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to change with these new faces around the league um, coming in the last couple of years. So, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.